All right, so this is the Unit 10 review for the final exams for Semester 2. We're just going to go through. You guys should have attempted all the problems, but remember that you should be going through, fixing them. And if I add any notes to it, you need to be copying those notes down too. So let's start out with Unit 8, which is solving a system by substitution. Now we should already know that this is substitution even without the instructions because, again, there's a variable by itself. So since it says x equals, we're going to take the other piece and plug it into the other problem, and since it's x equals this will replace the x. So your first line would say 5, and then instead of x, we put the 2y plus 6 minus 3y equals 2, and now we just need to solve. So we're going to distribute the 5 to get 10y plus 30 minus 3y equals 2. Combine your like terms, so 7y plus 30 equals 2. So now we're trying to get y alone, so we get rid of the addition first by subtracting 30. So we'll have 7y equals negative 28. Divide by 7. So y equals negative 4. Now we're going to take that answer and we're going to go ahead and plug it into that starred equation. So the x equals 2y plus 6. But now, instead of y, we know y is negative 4. So x equals 2 times negative 4 plus 6. So 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. Plus 6 means that x equals negative 2. And remember, our final answer must be written as a coordinate, x comma y. So negative 2 comma negative 4. Okay? All right, let's look at Unit 9, which is asking us to simplify. Now this one's much more complicated. So if I were you, I would cover up the bottom of the fraction and just worry about simplifying the top of the fraction first. Well, the top of the fraction has a parenthesis, so that means we have to distribute the exponent into the parentheses. Now remember, we do the regular thing with the regular number, so that means we're doing 4 to the second power, which is 4 times 4, which is 16. But then when we take an exponent to an exponent, remember, exponent and exponent means that we multiply the exponent. So 2 times 3, sorry, you couldn't see that, moving that down. 2 times 3 means we have y to the 6. So that is the top of my fraction. Now I can ignore the top of my fraction and only look at the bottom. Well, now we've got multiplication between them. So again, we're going to do the regular thing with the regular numbers. So 9 and 4 are my regular numbers. We multiply 9 times 4 and we get 36. And now, because it's multiplication, we add our exponents. So 8 plus 5 gives me y to the 13th. Now we have this overall fraction that we need to reduce. So we're going to go ahead and do 16 over 36. Now that's not going to be a whole number, so you're just going to have to reduce that fraction, and it reduces to 4 over 9. And then we're going to combine our y's, and remember, because it's division, we subtract. So 13 minus 6 is going to be 7, and there's more on the bottom, so then y to the 7th is on the bottom. And so your final answer is 4 over 9y to the 7th. All right. Unit 10. So we're asked to simplify this. Now, again, when I look at this problem, the first thing that I see is that there is an exponent of 2. Because there's an exponent of 2, that really means we're multiplying this everything in this parenthesis by itself. So we'll rewrite this as 5 square root 2 times 5 square root 2. Now it's simply a multiplication problem with the radicals. And remember, with the radicals, you do the outside times the outside first. So we'll do 5 times 5, which is 25. And then we need to go ahead and multiply what's inside the radical. So square root of 2 times square root of 2, which is square root of 4. And then we can go ahead and simplify that. The square root of 4 is 2. Do not take the square root of 25. I know that it's a perfect square and you're going to want to take the square root of it, but there's no square root around it, so we just leave it 25. The only time you take the square root is if there's really a square root around it. Now, since there's nothing there, it's multiplication, and 25 times 2 will give you 50. All right, Unit 11. Now, a lot of these that we'd been doing had addition and subtraction between the parentheses, but this time it's actually multiplication, which means we're going to have to distribute. So we start out by taking the first term and distributing it to each term in the next parentheses. So x times 9x would be 9x squared. X times positive 5 would be positive 5x. Now we've distributed this x to everything in the second parentheses, so that means we move on to the negative 7. Again, it's not just 7, it's negative 7 because of the minus sign. So now negative 7 times 9 would be negative 63x. And negative 7 times positive 5 would be negative 35. And we can't leave it this way. We need to combine our like terms. And our like terms here are the x terms, not the x squared, because remember, to be a like term, it has to have the same variable to the same exponent. And 5 plus negative 63 would be negative 58, and the x comes along. And there's no like term to this one, so we bring down the minus 35. And that's as far as we go. We do not factor because all we're doing is performing the indicated operation. We are not factoring. Unlike the second Unit 11 one, which asks us to factor. Now, a lot of you might have started off right off the bat doing guess and check, but remember, you must look for a GCF first every single time. So in this case, there's not a variable in common, but 3 divides into all of them. So we're going to have to pull out a GCF of 3 first. So 3 times something would give me 3x squared, and that would be x squared. And 3 times something would give me negative 9x. Well, 3 times negative 3 is negative 9, and then we need the x. And 3 times something would give me negative 30, which would be negative 10. Now, a lot of you might have stopped here, but remember, you still need to try to factor what is inside the parentheses. Since my first term is 1, we're going to go ahead and use a t-chart to factor it. What's it got to multiply to? Negative 10. What's it got to add to? Multiply to the last, add to the middle would be negative 3. So we would have 1 and 10. We would have 2 and 5. 3 would not work. So 1 and 10, 1 plus 10 is 11. 1 minus 10 is 9, so that's no good. 2 plus 5 is 7, but we can subtract them and to get 3, so if I want to get negative 3, the 5 has to be negative, so that's 2 and negative 5. So it's x plus 2, x minus 5, and there's still a GCF of 3 out front. Okay, then we look at Unit 13, and this time, we aren't just factoring. Look at, there's an equal sign here. So if it's an equal sign, then we need to solve. Remember how we constantly say you can only tell me what x equals if there's an equal sign? So in the end, you have to tell me what x equals because there's an equal sign here. And remember, there are 3 methods for doing this, right? We have square roots, we have factoring, and we have the quadratic. Now, right off the bat, we should eliminate the square roots because you can only use, and so write this down, right? Only use if x squared only. So if there's anything else other than an x squared, we can't use that. So since this one has an x squared and an x, either I have to factor or do the quadratic. Well, I would try factoring first because my first term is a 1. So I would have to find something that multiplies to 6 and adds to 6. Well, 1 and 6 is 6, 2 and 3 is 6. Well, if I add these, I get 7. If I subtract, I get 5, so that won't work. If I add these, I get 5. If I subtract, I get 1. So that means this time I cannot factor, which means we have to use the quadratic. And remember, it's that formula. X equals opposite of b, plus or minus square root quantity. B squared minus 4ac, all over 2a. And we always do the b squared minus 4ac first, which means we have to identify those pieces. So my a is 1, my b is 6, my c is 6. And now I'm going to do b squared minus 4ac, which would be 6 squared minus 4 times a is 1 times c is 6. So we're going to go ahead and type that into our calculators and get 12. Now this, remember, is inside the square root, so now I need to square root this. Well, there is no square root of 12, but it does break up into 4 and 3, which would give me 2 square root 3. So now we're going to do x equals opposite of b plus or minus that thing we just found, right, which is 2 square root of 3, all over 2 times a, right? Which in this case, the opposite of b, well, b is 6, so this would be negative 6 plus or minus 2 square root of 3 over 2 times a, well, a was 1, so this would be 2. And now we need to reduce this by thinking about what number divides into all of the outside numbers evenly. Well, 2 does, so I'm going to divide each one by 2 in order to reduce this. So x equals negative 3 plus or minus 1 square root of 3 over 1. But again, dividing by 1 doesn't change anything, so then this would be my final answer. And if you put the 1 there, that's fine. If you don't put the 1 there, that's fine as well. All right. Once you're finished making your corrections, move to the inside of the packet and watch the other video.